Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Yvette. We're going to be making an armchair and a stuffed pillow today. And I'm using someone's template. It's not my template. I will leave a link below of where I found it. I'm using thick cardboard paper for part of the template and foam board for the rest. Now when you cut out the foam board parts, please don't do what you see me doing here. You make it much more harder for yourself if you hold your cutting tool straight up like I'm doing. It's terrible. I didn't learn how to cut properly until after I finished this project. You want to hold your cutting tool no more than 45 degrees an angle, no higher. It makes it far easier to cut, trust me. I also learned that I could use my scroll saw actually to cut foam board very easily if I just turn down the speed of the blade, and it works perfectly. Now we're putting together the back and the sides using the foam board parts that we cut out. This is the easiest part of the project. And now the seat has two pieces. They're marked D. You're going to glue them to the base and glue one over the other. Once we have these pieces put together, we're going to be putting batting over the sides of the chair, the outsides of the chair. I got this cheap batting from Walmart. They have another type that if you go to Walmart, I would suggest you get that type and not this cheap kind. It's terrible. But once you put it on the arm of the chair, you want to cut off all excess material. And you're going to do that for both sides, both outsides of the chair. And then once you do that, you're going to move to covering the back of the chair with the batting. And again, cutting off all excess. Now we'll move on to putting batting on the arms of the chair, the edges of the arms and across the front. I didn't show myself covering the front, but you want to do that too. The front of the seat, you want to cover the top of the seat as well with a thin strip of batting. You do want to wait until the glue is fairly dry before you start trying to clip off the excess, or it will pull the whole strip off. I'm going to be using this stripe material. Each of the stripes is 1/8 inch in width. You want to use a material with a small print when you're making furniture, because you don't want some giant print making your furniture look weird. So I went with this simple stripe material because it also matches my theme, my Halloween theme. And we cut close to the edges of the couch, and then start with covering the back first and using glue to fold over those edges onto the sides. Another thing to be aware of, if you are using stripes like I'm using, you want to try to make sure your stripes are straight and that all parts of the chair, the stripes kind of match each other, go in the same direction. And now we're going to be covering these sides. And with this strip of material, you want to hem in the edge so that you have a very straight line as a seam. Because I'm using these stripes, I'm going to try to make sure I'm on one stripe rather than multiple stripes along the entire length of the seam. And I also want to try to get this to match up with, you know, where my other stripes are. Just try to keep it a little bit more uniform. At this point, you want to cut off all excess material as close as you can on the edge of this material. And this is going to be a tricky part because at the curves of the couch, you'll have to cut little slits in so that the material will lay flatter once you start tucking it in and gluing it in. I found it to be very, very challenging, but maybe you won't. And if I'm not really clear on this, please do more research because I don't feel I did a good job with cutting those little slits so that the material would curve over so that the material would lay flat over curves. And now we're going to move on to the 3 pieces of cardstock template. We're going to cover them with batting. We're going to cut off all excess material. You'll want to make 3 layers of the batting over the top of the back piece for like a extra padding at the headrest. You'll end up doing the same thing for the seat when you get to it, adding 3 layers of the batting for extra cushion. As I did earlier, I wanted to make sure that my stripes are very straight and that they don't get distorted because of my pulling the material taut. I cut some thin strips of cardboard, about 1/4 of an inch thick, and then covered it with material. You don't want the material to overlap itself on the back of the strips so that it won't become too bulky. I measured out the length of the strips that go to line over the arms of the chair and the back of the chair, or the top of the chair, just to cover up those seams where the 2 inserts went in. And you want to take it slowly, going up the armrest so that you keep that little strip straight, because it could get off alignment very easily. After you do the 2 sides, you want to make another strip and take it across the top of the chair to cover up that seam as well. And I made sure to, no, I didn't make sure, but it was a miracle that my stripes lined up here. The last piece to cover with batting and material is the seat. You're going to cover with batting the top of the seat and the front of the seat with batting. As with the headrest, you want to add a few extra pieces of batting so that the cushion is extra soft. So I'm adding 3 layers of batting and then covering the whole piece with the stripe material. I've made 4 holes in the base of the chair with the scissors, and then I'm going to use the dowel that I'll use to make my legs. I'll push that into the holes to make them the right size. I did get a little too enthusiastic with pushing the dowel into the holes, forgetting that I'm just making holes in some foam board. I don't need to be that aggressive. Plus I'm using glue, so it's just not that serious. I also cut out a small bit of material to cover the base that is a little smaller than the base, just to give it that finished touch. And here's my little leg that I carved. I just wanted really short legs, but of course you could have legs any length you want. I'm using my 1/2-inch chisel to carve at the end of this dowel. After I carved as much as I wanted, I used a flexible piece of sandpaper to sand the piece smooth. I marked with pencil where I wanted to cut it off, and then used the scroll saw to cut off the piece. Now I'm using watered down chestnut paint to paint the legs. I wish I would have used real stain for this, because it is real wood. I think it would have looked better. And now I pop a little glue in there and put the legs on. I slanted the legs, the 2 in the front forward and the 2 in the back, backward. And that is the completion of the chair. Now we'll move on to making a little throw pillow to put in the chair. And I ironed out a piece of old shirt material. I ironed it flat. And now I'm cutting two pieces that are 2 by 2 inches. I should have cut them 1 3/4 of an inch by 1 3/4 of an inch. So this will end up being a little too big. And now I'm just using a Sharpie paint pen to draw on a little Halloween face, scary face, for my pillow. And then I'm going to turn the piece onto the wrong side and hand sew around the edges, leaving one little bit open so that I can stuff the pillow. I realized that this pillow is way too big. It's just not in the right proportion, and I feel like the white and black needs a little color to break it up. So first of all, I made a new pillow, and this one is sized, it's 1 3/4 by 1 3/4 instead of 2 by 2. And I'm going to color it. I'm going to paint it orange and perhaps put something on there, but that fits far better than the first one. Okay, here's our little pumpkin. Now I'm going to be using this Harvest Orange paint. Acrylic paint straight onto fabric doesn't work well. I think it could crack or something like that. It could bleed. But what I put on here already is a homemade fabric medium, and that was 5 parts water, 1 part glycerin. So I hope it works.